Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. After the quite chilly start to November, things have now turned a lot milder. So, does that set the theme for the next couple of weeks, or can we expect scenes like this? I'll start by taking a look at the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The sequence runs from 15 GMT, Tuesday the 9th. At the outset, it's a fairly quiet picture. There are bits and pieces of rain in the north and the west, but high pressure to the south of the UK is keeping much of the country dry. Also, it is very mild for the time of year. As we go through the coming days, not a great deal changes. That high pressure continues to have a lot of influence. There is some uncertainty about developments during Thursday and Friday. This animation using the GFS model takes an area of low pressure to the north of the UK, with its weather fronts bringing cloud and rain there really only to the northwest. Some of the other models are taking that area of low pressure further south, and therefore the rain and stronger winds are extending down across into central and perhaps even southern parts of England. I'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Nonetheless, once that area of low pressure moves away, it's high pressure in charge again. Mostly dry conditions, they continue through the weekend into the early part of next week, and when the animation finishes here at 15 GMT, Tuesday the 16th, it's really a very quiet picture indeed, because the high pressure there keeping most of the UK dry. Perhaps an Atlantic influence over the north, particularly there in the far north, but generally a settled scene. With the southwesterly flow cut off by this point, temperatures will be a little bit lower than they are, but not cold by any means. So just to look at the temperature profile in a little bit more detail, this is at the upper level, so about 1,500 metres above sea level, Wednesday the 10th. The greens over the southern half of the UK are indicating mild air for the time of year. It is cooler as you head northwards there. Jumping ahead to Friday the 12th, there's the area of low pressure which I mentioned, tracking to the north, and across much of the UK it's greens, yellows and some orange shading there. Once more, mild upper level air. Saturday the 13th, high pressure's back in charge. It's centred to the north here. Even though it's centred to the north, we've got very mild air over the UK. We can see the yellow and orange shading there. So what does that mean in terms of the temperatures down at the ground level? Starting on Tuesday the 9th, values of 15 Celsius across much of the southern half of Britain. A little bit cooler as you go into Scotland, but very, very mild for this time of November. Jumping forwards to Friday, temperatures still 13, 14 Celsius. Remember as well that GFS often under forecasts maximum values even at this time of year by perhaps 1 Celsius. So we could still be seeing values as high as 15 on Friday. Then by Sunday, still in double figures, it's still quite mild for the time of the year. 11s, 12s there across southern and central regions, cooler as you go northwards into Scotland. Certainly not cold though. I think it's just worth as well taking a quick look at the bigger picture. Forecast temperatures for across Europe as a whole. This is 15 GMT, Sunday the 14th. It's mild in France, the Low Countries, Germany, even in Central Europe. Temperatures there not cold by any means. You've really got to go a long way northwards, eastwards to find winter. You can see there very cold in much of Scandinavia. But generally across Western and Central Europe and even much of Eastern Europe, it's rather mild. I mentioned some uncertainty about that area of low pressure. The GFS has it tracking to the north of the UK during Thursday and Friday. Hence, the rain was restricted to the northwest. But some of the other computer model runs, such as the UKV, that's the high resolution one which the Met Office runs, have the outbreaks of rain and stronger winds pushing further southwards. These charts show that. The one on the left is forecast rainfall for 18 at GMT on Friday the 12th. We can see there's patchy outbreaks of rain, a few heavier bursts pushing across much of England and Wales, although even on this computer model prediction, it is mostly dry in the south and particularly the southeast. The chart on the right there shows the associated forecast wind gust speeds, 20 to 30 miles an hour across much of the UK, so quite breezy, certainly windier than it is at the moment, if this is correct. But as I say, though, there is uncertainty about exactly how much influence that area of low pressure will have as it moves eastwards during the second half of this week. So, how do the deterministic models compare with each other at 1 week ahead? Just as a recap, here's the GFS, which the sequence was based upon, Tuesday the 16th of November. High pressure, really the dominant feature there, with the UK sitting right under it. The Canadian model at the same time, high pressure as well, slight differences in the orientation of it. German icon model, the same. The European ECM, it's high pressure again. And finally, the UK Met Office. No surprises there, it's a high pressure dominated scenario. So I think the first week there's good agreement on the general picture. High pressure will be continuing to have a lot of influence on the weather, should often be dry. Temperatures very mild to begin with, will be edging downwards later on. The uncertainty is really during Thursday and Friday as that area of low pressure moves eastwards, just how far southwards its influence extends. GFS keeps the rain restricted to northwest of UK. Some of the other models bring at least some patchy outbreaks of rain and stronger winds further southwards. So what about the second week of the forecast period? Well, regular viewers will know what I always say at this point. It's all about using the Ensemble data to try and identify trends and probabilities rather than specifics. But this week I'm going to be a little bit naughty and show something different. It's another animation. Once more, it's based upon the GFS deterministic model run, so it's a snapshot rather than an ensemble view. It starts on Tuesday, November the 16th. At the outset, it's a quiet picture. We've got high pressure continuing to keep things settled. The yellows and greens there are showing rather warm upper level air for this time of the year. But watch what happens in the days that follow. High pressure builds to the west and the northwest of the UK. That opens the gate to a potent Arctic blast. This purple and blue air moves southwards across all of the UK, and by Sunday the 21st, high pressure is still to the west. It's blocking the flow of mild weather systems, and instead we've got our air coming from the northeast. The UK entirely under blue shading there. A lot colder than anything we've had so far this autumn, potentially quite a potent wintry blast. Could mean sleet and snow spreading southwards. Just as an example, here's a chart for Friday the 19th. The white shading over Northern Ireland, Scotland and down the eastern coast is indicating sleet and snow showers. How likely is this scenario? Well, I'll make the case against it and for it now. Beginning with the computer model verification statistics. These are updated each day. At the moment, the ECM is in first place, UK Met Office second, the Canadian in third, the GFS, which is going for that cold scenario, is in fourth place. It's worth saying the other models don't support the GFS and they are verifying better at the moment. The case for it, I'll start with the GEFS control run. This is the run in the Ensemble, which is initiated with the same starting conditions as the GFS operational, but runs at a lower resolution. The chart here is for Saturday, November the 20th. It also shows high pressure centered to the west and cold air moving down from the northeast. It's very consistent with the GFS operational, and that's not always the case. Sometimes they do tend to go off at a tangent, even though they are initiated with the same starting data. Another factor possibly in favour of a cold outbreak or colder outbreaks as we head through the second half of November and into the early part of the winter is the La Nina pattern, which we have at the moment. That can be seen here. So this graphic is showing sea surface temperature anomalies right across the globe. It was generated on the 7th of November. Here is in the eastern part of the equatorial Pacific, the blue shading is indicating colder than average sea surface temperatures. That's the La Nina pattern, and it correlates with an increased chance of cold spells in Western Europe during the late autumn and the early part of the winter. Whilst we're on this chart, the other thing to draw attention to is the sea surface temperature profile across the Atlantic. That's surrounded by the red box over there. You can probably see the UK just near to the right-hand side of the chart. It's a really, really strong positive anomaly right across the Atlantic there to the west and north of the UK. I can't recall seeing this type of thing before, at least not to this extent. What it means in practice is that if we get a northerly flow, it will be blunted to some extent because of that warm sea surface temperature profile. But still be cold if it's coming down from the Arctic, perhaps just not as cold as it would otherwise be. Okay, so having discussed the wintry scenario, which the GFS operational run is showing, I'll now take a look at the Ensemble data to see whether there is much support for it. This is the 16-day GFS plot for London and southeastern England. Upper air temperatures here plotted across the top half. The thick black line there is a 30-year norm, and the thick green line for GFS operational, the thick blue line for GEFS control run. Those both dip down well below it, and these are the ones going for the very cold scenario. You can see they stay below that thick black line for much of the second week. But the purple line, which is the Ensemble mean, that's generated by averaging out all of the individual runs, is actually above that 30-year average, and it stays there until around about the 20th or 21st of November, when it just gently dips a little below it. All in all, that's suggesting that the cold scenario isn't being supported by the majority of the runs in the Ensemble. I'd say at this stage it's just a small minority. In terms of rainfall, it's actually looking quite dry once again. Some spikes there appear through the second week. Each one of those is an individual run in the Ensemble forecasting rain at that given time. But as I say, it's not looking particularly unsettled for this time of year, suggesting that high pressure will be continuing to have a good deal of influence. Probably most runs are keeping the high pressure closer to the UK than the operational and the control runs were. They had it backing westwards into the Atlantic, but I suspect many of these have it centred closer to the United Kingdom. Jumping up to Glasgow to see what's taking place there. Well, again, on the upper air temperature profile, the purple line is above the 30-year norm to begin with, but it dips below it a little earlier from around about the 20th, and it dips possibly more markedly than the London one. It's really what I would expect to see, because the colder air from the north more likely to reach the northern half of the UK, of course. It has to cross the northern half of the UK if it's going to reach the south. So it's suggesting somewhat more support for a colder scenario during the second week. But again, most of the runs are not painting anything like such a wintry picture as the control and operational were. The rainfall profile, it's wetter than in the south, from more spikes showing there, but once more, I wouldn't describe it as a wet picture for this time of the year. The snow row, I think, just worth highlighting here, just to maybe add a little bit of evidence for or against that colder scenario. It reaches a maximum of 6 near to the end there. That equates to a 18% chance of snow falling on that given day. That's the highest it reaches, 18. Still a low chance. More evidence to support the to discount the GFS scenario, at least. I don't like the word discount, but at least to think that it's not the most probable outcome. Looking at the 2 metre temperature profile, going back down to London, These columns show the forecast outputs from all of the runs in the Ensemble. It's mostly light green which appears, and through the second week the amount of light green increases. The yellows, which are used to indicate milder runs, 11 to 15 Celsius, the amount of yellows decreases there generally through the second week. So there is something of a cooling trend appearing, and some of the dark green there starts to show up. That's indicating runs going for between 1 and 5 Celsius maximums. All in all, it is a cooling trend, but cold probably not, just dipping down towards the average. That would seem to be the most likely scenario based on this in the south. Going up to the north again, this time the amount of light green decreases. It's dominant though for much of the period. It's really from around about the 21st onwards that the dark green, the colder runs, start to become the majority. As I say, those are ones going for maximums of between 1 and 5 Celsius. Towards the very end there's a little bit of blue. Those are really cold runs, 0 Celsius to -8. So it reaches a maximum of 10% at the end, which means I think that 3 of the runs in the Ensemble are falling into that bucket. So the cooling trend in the north is more marked than it is in the south. Greater chance of cold conditions, but I think on balance it's quite an average picture even in the north. Looking at the data table showing forecast surface level pressure using York as a central location. Through week 2, the general trend here is for the yellows and oranges to make up the majority of the space in these columns, and those are both really indicating for this time of the year that pressure is most likely to be above the norm. There is an increasing amount of green and a little bit of blue there later on. Those are runs which are bringing in deeper areas of low pressure, but as I say, the majority here stay in the yellow and orange categories. Looking at the mean forecast surface level pressure for Friday the 19th, again this is from the GEFS, we see is high pressure having a good deal of influence. It's ridging northwards into the Atlantic. This is that indication that some of the runs are building the high pressure further west, and we've got colder air coming down from the Arctic. But the general pattern is for high pressure to be having a good deal of influence over the UK. Looking at the European model at the same time, remember this is verifying better than the GFS for GEFS generally, and it's got high pressure here. The pattern looks flatter, more of a westerly flow. Fewer of the runs in the Ensemble therefore are probably going for north or northwesterly outbreaks. Nonetheless, as I say, the differences there are not huge, probably indicating that we could be at times seeing high pressure building a little bit further northwards and westwards, but I don't think the scenario painted is a very potent wintry outbreak like the GFS is showing. Possibly just cooler air coming down from the northwest at times, maybe increasing the risk of frost. So, to summarise the next 14 days, week 1, high pressure remains the dominant feature, so it will often be dry, but there will be some rain around, and it could also turn windier at times. Very mild early on, but towards the end of the period, temperatures begin to dip. Week 2, rainfall amounts generally below the average in much of the UK, but the wettest conditions are likely to be in the northwest. Temperatures dip, therefore they become close to the average in the south, and at times it could be quite chilly in the north. That leads to an increased risk of snow over high ground in the north, and also a greater chance of frost generally. There is a relatively low chance, probably around 15% at the moment, of a more potent wintry outbreak developing. That is something to keep an eye on during the coming days. At the moment, though, most of the computer models are not supporting it. So, there we have it. It looks like temperatures will probably be trending downwards after that very mild start. But will we get the potent wintry outbreak, which the GFS model is showing? I suspect not. I could well be wrong. We'll just have to keep an eye on things during the coming days. So thank you very much for watching this. I hope you found it useful and enjoyed it. If you did, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thanks now. Bye.